Hi there, I'm Sean, and welcome back to my channel. A video I wanted to make today from a different location in my house is about a article from Psychology Today. It's from September 2019, 2025, so just a matter of days ago, just 9 days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. There's this article called "The Psychological Cost for LGBTQ plus Kids of Their Lives Being Debated." This is an article written by a social worker named Whitney Coulson. And I'm going to tell you what I found in this article. And there's all kinds of things like this if you go to Psychology Today. This is extremely mainstream leftist thought in the mental health world. This is in the textbooks. It's constantly put into trainings, continuing education. It's everywhere. So, and that's part of what I want to be doing on my channel is talking about that. And one of my points of talking about this is just the bias, and the bias you will see in an article like this. It's like, what perspectives are they not taking? What is the one-sidedness of this, where you're not getting a lens from really any other side, that there are different theories, different perspectives around sexuality and gender and things, and really just there's just one narrative that you're supposed to agree with, and that's what we've got here. So first off, the topic of the article here, if you go to it, and I'll provide a link to this article, is that in New Jersey there's some school system that was going to have parents come in for like a school board meeting or something and debate whether to make the school like a safe space. And so you got a couple things going on here where there's like the school setting, instead of it being a place where you learn. You come and learn facts. You go and learn and prove your knowledge through like testing and develop into like hopefully a well-rounded human being who knows how to think, who's got a lot of education and a lot of different things, so that you can go forth and become engineers and scientists and productive workers, in all kinds of fields, right? Just it's supposed to train you up so that you're ready to be at least closer to being a mature, productive adult who can succeed in the world. At least that's what I would hope education would be, something like that, instead of an indoctrination center. So at a time when probably people are skeptical more than ever of what's going on in public schools, these New Jersey schools were debating whether to make the schools a safe place by keeping gender, what kids are describing themselves and their gender and sexuality and the pronouns they're using, keeping these things secrets from their parents, keeping it just in the school. We're not going to tell the parents how the kids are identifying. We're going to keep it from them to protect them. And so there's this, we need to, the parents and what's going on in family life, that's bad. We need to protect them from that by giving them this safe, inclusive place, which of course the inclusivity thing, they don't use that term. I don't think they actually use the term in the article, which is surprising. But of course, to be inclusive, you're still excluding other things. That's some of the hypocrisy so obvious in the left. But so isn't that creepy that they want to be, well, keeping secrets from parents? And I don't think it's surprising, because probably if you've worked in schools and interact with teachers and things, you find that actually they do a lot of that kind of thing. They like to keep things in the school. They like to deal with things in the school. And while there's maybe some understanding to aspects of that, this just seems to like serve more of like school. It has shifted from a place of learning to a place where they're like creating a sort of this therapeutic bubble wrap place of like, oh, don't be harmed by the things of the world um, don't experience contradiction, don't have to experience hard things. We're gonna make the other kids who disagree probably shut up and label that as hate speech, right? Because I have no doubt that in making the safe spaces, they would then make it that you probably as teachers probably have to use the pronouns or whatever sort of terms these kids are coming up with, and that anybody contradicting it, whether teachers or students, undoubtedly would get in trouble, right? How do you make it safe without making it authoritative? The article goes on to describe this tension of that it's the parents who are politicizing the issue. The poor kids are just trying to survive. They're being they're being sort of treated like they're just pawns in a game or something like that. And that it's the parents who are the ones politicizing it. It's the adults who are the ones politicizing. Of course, they mean the conservative adults, the people who are actually thinking for themselves and seeing through obvious lies and propaganda. They're the ones who are making this a problem, not the left, who creates this whole gender, sex ideology, LGBTQ plus cult that you need to be a part of. And if you experience any things around this, well, you need to be a part of that, and you need to be on the left with that. You have to be on their side with it, and you can't be just like exploring this thing in any other way than that it needs to become your whole identity, subsume everything. Everything needs to come under that, and as something that needs to be like shouted from the rooftop, something you're proud about, and anything else that you want in life, like maybe your faith is important to you, or maybe the desire for family and children, for instance. Those things all have to be subsumed under the radical ideology, and that's the only way. So basically it's a thumbing the nose to the bad conservative parent if you're going to go to the school board and challenge this. And actually later in the article, basically the messaging in the article, if you read it, is that if you disagree with this kind of stuff, you basically need to sit down, shut up, don't talk about it, because you're the one causing problems, not those who are fomenting all of this in media, online, in the schools, trying to push this ideology stuff, this ideology crap earlier and earlier onto kids. This writer laments that these poor kids have to keep defending the ideology, that their identity is something they have to defend again and again and again and again. And it's like, well, kind of, yeah, because there's a whole ridiculous ideological cult built around this thing. You're butting up against reality, and unfortunately the children, the kids in these schools have been fed this stuff from adults, right? It's not coming from kids. Kids didn't invent this. It's coming from the adults. It's coming from the research and theorists who go into all this gobbledygook of trying to break down all these different aspects of the self and put names to it, and convey that your whole identity has to be wrapped around in it, and the only way you're accepted is if this stuff is out there and being celebrated by other people in your life, and it needs to be talked about, and you need special rights and privileges, right? Like, everything has to revolve around this. So again, the article is clearly conveying that side of things. Again, just that this is written from such a left-wing lens. It's totally insensitive, hostile to any other perspectives about this thing. The article talks about how like anxiety, depression, and trauma rates are higher for these groups, and so despite how society has become a society where you're actually like cooler, popular, interesting, it's actually advantageous to identify as these sorts of things, that you actually get privilege. You move up the intersectionality by identifying these things. Somehow the anxiety, depression, trauma is all like up, up, up. Like we need to, as we've talked about it more, the stress about it has gone up. So the answer is we need to like talk about it more and talk about it from the only the perspective that the left has portrayed, which is very authoritarian and controlling. So the article talks about, let's see, I already hit on the safe spaces aspect of this. Let's see, what else do I want to hit on from this article? There's also the oppressor-oppressed kind of narrative in here. There's the segmenting people into groups, that there's minority stress, right? That those in the minority group experience more stress in society than those who don't. There's a certain element of truth, as I think there is a lot of from the ideology of the left, is there's like pieces of truth. As someone who's goth, as someone who's done like gender bending, right? In college, I wore skirts and leggings and tights and high heel boots and things. If you were at Ball State in the late 2000s in college there, as far as I know, I was like the only one I'm aware of who was, at least as a man, pushing the fashion, pushing that look of walking around extremely androgynous, certainly leaning into dressing with really strong feminine elements. I can't really remember, because I did know some other like punk rock, metal, goth people at that time, and I remember being pretty alone in that as I was experimenting with leaning more into leaning more into feminine fashion that I was drawn to, and maybe I'll make a separate video about that. But my point is that certainly there was anxiety that comes with that. Certainly, as you push up against societal norms, whatever they may be, and make yourself stand out, even as just dressing goth in a normal way. Dress in all black, put on some accents, put on some makeup, do something with your hair, and you're gonna draw a certain attention to yourself by doing that, for instance. And so there's an element of that. At the same time, it's still this like us versus them, this identity. And so it's like, well, there's this stress around this, and there's stress for these groups, as if the rest of us aren't also dealing with like all other kinds of stress in our lives. Like, sure, that's a type of stress, and there could be trauma there, right? I've had bottles thrown at me from cars. I had somebody get out of their vehicle and threaten to fight me once. Like, certainly there's like aspects of stress and trauma there that are valid. At the same time, it's still this elevation of identity politics, of what my sexual identity is, or what I'm drawn towards sexually needs to be like the thing that is on display, that we're talking about so much, that totally defines me, and everybody needs to know it. And how oppressed I am because of that thing too. And you, the outsider, are the oppressor. It is toxic ideology, and that if you don't, and of course that if you don't go along with it, that you're hateful because of it. And that's one of the things where the left goes too far, is then that you're hateful because of it. And so this really relates to that other series I want to be doing on where the left goes too far. Anyway, sidetrack. So there's this gaslighting in the article that it's bad for the children for the adults to be talking about it, for parents to be concerned for their children, concerned about this ideology. If you're not on board with the left wing, with the radical left, and how far they've taken things, you're the bad person for that, and you're the one harming your child. You're the one causing harm, not the ones who are twisting your kids up into stuff that they don't need to be thinking about, they don't need to be worrying about, that they weren't worrying about, that was not going on just decades in the past, and certainly not anywhere near the extent of this, and certainly not 100 years before that. People have only gotten more obsessed about this, and the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, the more you obsess over that, the greater it becomes, right? The more wound up I became in how I was dressing and what that meant to me back in that time, just the more it inflated it became as something in my life. And it was not healthy. It was making me feel worse when I was getting more wrapped up in that. And so the thing to do is actually decrease this thing, not exacerbate it, not keep going. We need to make everything wrapped up around this, and that if you don't agree with how it's packaged in this way, that you're evil and hateful and fascist and crap. Let's see, the article does go on to outright blame Christian nationalism as political weaponization of religion. So, I mean, the wagging finger, the pointing of blame of why are the kids trying to survive, and they need their safe space, and they need to explore their gender and their sexuality, and they need to be doing this in school privately from parents, because evil Christians who I guess want to be proud of their nation, because somehow nationalism, being pro the country you live in, like I'm pro my neighborhood, I'm pro my house, I'm adequately pro my state. I certainly want to, for all the criticisms I could levy at America and certainly the federal government, I still want to be pro my nation because it stands for so many things that are good. Somehow this writer, this social worker, is writing that nationalism is bad and Christianity is bad, and that this is bad for all those in the who are identifying as LGBT. So again, like, you need to identify with them. That just the us versus them thing. I mean, this is an article written by someone who, when they work with clients, are supposed to be able to really explore with anybody, be able to understand many sides from an issue, and be able to explore things with someone. And people are coming to counseling from all kinds of backgrounds and perspectives. And so if you were to come from any perspective other than the far left and read an article like this, you're getting, whoa, I mean, I'm a Christian who has my own stuff, and I want to be pro my nation. In fact, I would have been I was more anti-American earlier in my life because I grew up watching things like the Simpsons and just all kinds of influences from that time, right? I think of TV shows in the 90s and early 2000s and things. And I think in my own public schooling, there was generally a feeling in the air, in the culture, of like really down on America. It just wasn't quite so overt as it's become. It was more like, yeah, you could take your pot shots at America. Oh, we're like, we oppressed the Native Americans and things, and oh yeah, there was racism in the past. And you know what? There was a certain levity about it, because we go like, yeah, those things are bad. There is a lot of bad things, and there's a lot of bad things that the government has done and that have been done in the culture and things. It's like, and like we knew that, and we didn't approve of it. We were like there was a certain like accounting of like, yeah, like racism bad, like yeah, and there's people who are homosexual, and you know what, you got to figure, like, that's a hard thing to figure out faith-wise, and figuring it out culture-wise, and a culture of you know, there has been a culture of having to hide that and be ashamed of that, and like seriously hard things there, but then the the radical left swung things so far the other way, and so far the other way demanding it, out of like radical advocacy, and honestly I suspect feelings of vengeance, right? Like if like search yourselves, right? There's probably a feeling of like, we're gonna stick it to them. We've been oppressed. If whatever the group you identify with, whether sexual or racial, you can see on the left that the perspective is kind of this sense of like a vengeance, right? From stick it to straight people, to stick it to white people, to stick it to the Christians. There is that sense of like, we're gonna take the culture back, now, kind of away from them. I don't know. Am I wrong? That's kind of how it feels from my perspective, but I could be wrong. Anyway, the article, if you weren't sure how biased this was, it's come to the point of calling out and blaming Christian nationalism. The article then goes on to say that basically the Bible condemning queerness, and homosexuality is a myth, that really the Bible was talking about sexually exploitative sort of relationships, basically like immoral actions, not the homosexuality itself. Trying to say that the word homosexuality like wasn't invented until like, I don't know, the late 1900s and the 1940s, something like that. And so there's this thing that you would not see, I'm sure that this author would not do, is they wouldn't blame any other religion like this. They wouldn't attack any other religion like this, or attack or try to retcon the religious text. I really doubt this social worker would write these things about Islam. I really doubt that this social worker would go into the Quran and try to take like Arabic phrasings out of the Quran and tell Muslims like, oh no, that doesn't really mean what that means. It means this thing here. It's it's laughable, but it also like extremely offensive. But I don't know, if you're like white Christian conservative, you being offended doesn't matter, or straight, like you being offended doesn't matter, right? Because of all the power and the privilege. And so, I'll let you, the listener, go into that. I'd have to. I have certainly read about the arguments and debates around the term homosexuality and whether the Bible condemns it or not. It seems like just kind of laughably absurd to me. You can read the Bible yourself. You can go into the Greek yourself. You can go into the text of the Old Testament, how they talk about homosexuality. You can go into things like the book of Romans written by Paul, and how homosexuality is described. Not only is the word used of male with male relations, but also the activities themselves are described. Like it's there, and you have to wrestle with it being there. And so the left, like in this article, would rather go, well, those evil conservative Christians just are misinterpreting their own text because they just want a reason to hate homosexuals. And it's like, wow, it's like so disrespectful. It's like, if the text didn't really say what it says, if this was some misinterpretation, if this is something that theologians got wrong and wasn't plainly described, like, I would much rather for people who are struggling with homosexuality and gender identity and these different things that have come up, like, I would much rather them feel like they were just welcomed in, that these things aren't described in sinful terms, or the Bible describes mankind is made as man and woman, and Jesus references the creation account in that way, right? God made them male and female in the beginning and made us to be married. We're made to get married and produce babies, and this is some of the most joyful, meaningful stuff we can do in life. And that would be so hard. That is so hard to experience something in yourself where you're butting up against that, and where the Bible is saying, oh, this isn't, even though you feel this way, or even though you're drawn towards the same sex, and even though you don't like something about your body and wish you were something else, the text is going, but this is the way that God made you, and this is what God intends for you. And Jesus talking about, like, some people are born to be eunuchs and some people are made that way, and these things are hard sayings. It's like Jesus is saying, like, the way is hard, and the way is hard for so many more reasons beyond sex and gender identity sorts of things, because there's a whole host of other sins described in the Bible, and we all commit them, and we are all imperfect. It's not like this thing is so bad and this thing is less. Like the sins of character flaws, of pride and greed, of malice and hatred and murder and lust and all kinds of things, and selfishness. Like, these are all things that are sins in our heart, that are things that come from inside of us, that are evil and wrong, and cause us to harm each other in the world, and just, make the world worse and farther than what God intended because of sin in the world. These are hard things to wrestle with. Coming back to the article, the article basically is going, like, hand wave the problem away and just say those people on the right are misinterpreting it, are interpreting it intentionally wrong to oppress you. And it's just like, and this is written by a therapist, right? This is an article that, like, anybody should be able to come and read this and kind of feel some understanding about it, even if it's something like writing from both sides, or from writing from multiple perspectives on things, right? But no, they're all in on the camp of the youth all need to be away from their parents, exploring their identities and things without contradiction, without criticism, without facts coming into play. The teacher's role, the school's role, is not to, like, teach them truth, but rather to give them a space to, like, kind of stew in further confusion and indoctrination amongst themselves, I guess, as the school obviously would be peddling more leftist narratives. And of course the therapists and social workers will be as well. What else do I want to say about this article? It ends with describing essentially conservatives, the right, again, as full of fear and moral panic. So it's implied that it's towards the right? Anybody who's disagreeing with this must be from the right. Never mind that there could be liberals, at least liberals left behind by the radical left, who could also have issues with this ideology, right? It's not all one camp, and there's tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people on each side in our country and throughout the world. But basically, the writer here is basically calling you homophobic if you're not on board with this, that you're fearful, that it's from fear. And I have different thoughts about that. Is like, for one, if it was based on fear and panic, wouldn't that be something to empathize with? Wouldn't that be something to try to understand? Wouldn't that be something to provide a safe space for? If people on the right were really fearful and in panic, certainly parents who are struggling with, like, oh my gosh, my child has been caught up in this thing of exploring identity, sexuality, different things like that. Certainly parents can struggle with that and can experience fear because it is pushing on their moral values, on the values of their faith, on the values of maybe, like, facts and science and things like that, at least in regards to the gender ideology stuff. Like, if it was really fear, shouldn't you care about that? Shouldn't the therapist care? Like, wow, that's really hard. Yeah, you're a parent, you love your child, and they're coming home and telling you they're identifying as some other thing, and you know what they are. You held them at their birth. You know what they are. And now they're going because of Reddit or TikTok or because of their teacher. They're going, no, I'm something the opposite of that. You have ideas as far as them going on and finding someone and finding a partner and maybe having kids and grandkids and things like that someday, and having all of that potentially, that is like under attack. The vision for the future of what you had for your children, and that just gets belittled and described as fear and moral panic and homophobic. And of course the moral aspect of that, like, well, yeah, you want your family to align with your values, you want your kids to align with your values and morality, and it's like the irony, because of course radical left-wing person would be in fear and moral panic if their kid came home from school and went, I realized I'm conservative and I joined Turning Point USA. Imagine the moral panic of the liberal on the left at their kid being not aligning with their values, with their ideology, with their sexual gender ideology stuff. Imagine that. So, and of course it is, last thing, it is gaslighting to go, oh, it's phobic, oh, it's fear, while there could be legitimate aspects of that I've just hit on. Obviously, we're not going around afraid of trans people. Well, I mean, there's been some trans, shootings as of late, and seems to be happening more and more. I'll leave other videos, other people to be tracking with that stuff. Certainly there could be some legitimate fear of that going on, that the radicalization of these identity politics and describing our side as being hateful fascists is promoting for more of the us versus them, which has radicalized people to do violence, like that Tyler Robinson killing Charlie Kirk. But we're not afraid. Like, in the cliche saying, it's like, I've had friends who are gay. It's like, it's fine. Like live your life. I can be Christian and go, like, you can have you can be living out your gay sexuality, and I could understand absolutely wanting to do that as well. Sexuality is a strong drive, certainly if you're drawn to like the same sex or experimenting as bi, or whatever, in our country, in our free country, like you're free to do that, and I don't hate you for doing that, and I could be friends with you as you do that, and there's so much more to a person than those things. And you know what, you can talk about your side, I can talk from my side, and we can disagree on that, and we can even disagree about what kind of like rights have to come with those kind of things, and still not hate each other. As someone who is a big fan of free speech, free religion, and gun rights, like, I feel like, well, my rights have been under attack all the time throughout my life as a huge defender of self-defense, of gun ownership and things like that. The left has been constantly trying to attack and take away my rights and use big events like mass shootings and things or gang violence as things to justify that. And as frustrating and angry as that can even make me be, I don't hate them for it, and it's better for us to go through the political process to try to work things out and to work it out through debate than resorting to violence. So anyway, if you are LGBT, I think most conservatives are not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of you. There's not a phobia there, and there are people of all kinds on the right. There are people who are just openly LGBT on the right. There are people trying to figure out and navigate that with their conservative values or with Christian values, figuring that out on the right. And there's actually a lot of there's a lot of live and let live. There's more live and let live on the right, actually, I think, than there is on the left. And I think society is trying to come to terms with that. Things have really switched as the left has become more radical and authoritarian and judgmental, and nothing of the tolerance and coexistence that they try to put on bumper stickers. They're not about that. In fact, I was just thinking today how, as I was reading about things like autogenophilia and transvestism and things like that, as I'm reading about this research, I'm reading through this Wikipedia article, and I had this realization, because I used to study theology very intensely. I have my own like OCD, scrupulosity sorts of stuff here, really honed in on doctrines and things in the past, and I realized that these gender researchers are basically like the theologians of the left of this time, parsing out all these different aspects and different details and getting into camps about this is the thing or this is the thing. And it's like religion has been replaced by a religion of sexuality, of gender, feeling, sex, identity sorts of things. And it's like one thing's been replaced for the other thing, instead of debating about the Eucharist, about Catholic or Lutheran or Calvinism or Baptist perspectives on what is happening with the body and the blood, with the cracker and the juice or the wine. Instead, it's debating like, well, what does this mean? What does this feeling mean? How does this person identify? Is this a gender thing? Is this a sexuality thing? Like, just parsing this out in all these different ways in an obsessive sort of way, because there's analytical people who like to pull out the details like that, and they're probably more inclined to do research. And in the past, they would have probably been more inclined to be theologians debating these things. And so instead of that, they're in the research fields theorizing about all these things, pulling apart things that are like, that, okay, that's a feeling, or that's a whim, or that's yeah, that can be a desire that you have. There can be something there, and you don't have to wrap your whole life around that thing. And maybe it would be better to stop trying to parse out every single little piece and come up with labels and terms and theories on every different aspect of these things, because like honestly, you can't open up somebody's head and do a scan and parse it all out. And instead, the left just dogmatically like picked a perspective and went, this is how it has got to be, and now you need to call men women and women men, using weird terminologies like trans woman and trans men, where you have to, like, in your brain as you read the article, go, oh, like that means fake man, fake woman, right? Where you have to change it in your head, which is really so annoying and gaslighting when you're not bought into that ideology. And the reality is that the left didn't try to buy you in, right? I mean, I just want to question people that, like, how did you come along into this thing? Is it really like deep thought, scientific research, looking at the arguments and the debates that got you convinced to start using pronouns and start being all celebratory trans? I mean, I remember people gave me a lot of affirmation for whatever comments, for whatever looks, for whatever hate. When I was doing my gender bending thing, my gender bending goth thing in college, I actually received a lot of affirmation, and I actually received a lot of kindness and warmth and welcoming from other Christians. And when I go to church, man, people want to come and talk to you when you look weird like that, and like love all over you. And so very different than maybe I don't know, than how the right is portrayed. So I think with that, I've lost any other train of thought. I think I've said what I need to say about this article. You know, all that to culminate in just this. This is the kind of articles that they're putting out. This is the kind of stuff that is coming out right after the murder of Charlie Kirk. I'm going to go on the website. I'm going to explore some more to see if there are there any articles about grieving Charlie? Are there any articles from conservative perspectives? Because I kind of doubt it, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. Thank you. If you like this kind of thing, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.